As you can see here, this is a map of the Osage ancestral territory. Much of Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma, parts of Louisiana. What I discovered in my research is that the story of the Osage Nation is an unusual one compared to many other Native American nations, in the sense that the height of their expanse coincided with Euro-American settlers for a time. One could say that the peak of their expanse was around the turn of the 18th century. What changed was the Louisiana Purchase. A previously peaceful relationship with French traders was replaced by American settlers moving west. And the Osage, among with many other Native American people groups, were eventually relocated to reservations over the course of the 19th century, and that little purple square is the Osage Reservation. That was how much territory they ceded over the 19th century. For the sake of time, I won't be going into a lot of what they experienced during that relocation, but I don't want to downplay that. The packed quarters and scarce means led to illness, poverty, and death, not just among the Osage, but all of the other people groups who had been relocated. There was essentially a conflict amongst the Native Americans for land that had become necessary for survival. And this state of poverty continued in this reservation through the 19th century. And these events seemed to momentarily fade away because in 1897, oil was discovered on the Osage Reservation. A lot of it. Overnight, the Osage people became the wealthiest people group per capita in the world. In 1906, Congress passed an allotment act which gave land specifically to individual Osage people in the reservation. But with this came the qualification of a governmental guardian, a white representative from the federal government, to manage their finances because it was believed that the Osage people couldn't handle their finances on their own. What this eventually turned into, of course, was abuse on the part of the guardians of stealing those finances, taking bribes. Essentially, corruption descended onto the Osage Reservation. And things came to a head in the early 1920s. Between 1921 and 1924, at least 24 Osage people were killed in various means for their money, through shootings, poison, and on one occasion, the demolition of an Osage residence. The killings became so frequent that the newly founded Federal Bureau of Investigation became involved, and there was a full-blown FBI case on the reservation that resulted in a man by the name of William Hale being imprisoned in 1929 on the count of one murder. None of the other cases laid against William Hale or the other corrupted officials managed to stick, and none of them were imprisoned. In 1925, Congress passed a law that none of the allotments with oil could be passed to anyone of less than half Osage ancestry. When I first heard about these events, my initial reaction was one of shock and confusion. I was confused as to why I had not heard of it before. It seemed like a pretty important chapter in US history as one of the first big FBI cases. There was a lot at stake for the FBI specifically at this time. If they didn't manage to crack the case, it would not look good on them. There was a lot at stake for them. So, despite the fact that, as generally, we know very little about Native American culture, the fact that the FBI was involved struck me as something that should be more commonly known. I was surprised to find out that I was not alone in my ignorance. Many of my peers and family members and friends were equally confused when I told them about what I'd read. I couldn't understand, and to some extent still don't understand, how this has been forgotten. We are flawed people. But the emotional and mental turmoil that I've had to address since coming across this narrative has been significant. And I'm sure many of us, with the questions of social justice comes the question of responsibility, any actions that we can take or should take? Lots of questions. I was left wondering for a time what I, a white college student, could possibly do to understand or to share my findings or to even begin to take steps of reconciliation. It seemed that my senior show had become pointless and futile. But after being in conversation with my family, peers, and professors, I came to the conclusion that even the smallest of steps can be a step in the right direction. My senior show then became an attempt not only to bring understanding to myself, but to communicate this chapter of history to others. If we could swipe to the next slide, Scott. These are pieces from the work that I've created over the past 6 months. The work for my senior show is concept art for what may become a graphic novel, an animation project of some kind, something bigger further down the line, of an original story set during these events in the 1920s. You'll see the image on your right, nope, your left, is a character turnaround design for an original protagonist by the name of Stephen. During this time, Osage people would be given a traditional Osage name at birth, but would then go to Catholic school and receive a Christian name. And so my story is about Stephen kind of witnessing these events and grappling with them